Hi, this is Arvid from Econ Explains. And today we will see how a Nobel Prize winner, Professor Banerjee, fought corruption in Indonesia. But he did not do it alone. He worked closely with a stellar team of economists and with the Indonesian government. And we will discuss three strategies he used to fight corruption. One had good results, one had mediocre results, and the last one, which is my favorite, had absolutely amazing results. So let's get started. The setting of the corruption is in the Rastra program in Indonesia. Since 1997, the Rastra program gives 15 kilos of subsidized rice to households at 1/5 of the market price. And it delivers this to more than 15 million households. But there is a problem, and that is that most of the rice never gets to the targeted households. On average, targeted households only received about 5 of their 15 kilos of rice. So where did the rice go to? Well, let's switch to a flow diagram. It can be a bit complicated, but the payoff is worth it. An important fact is that while the central government buys the rice, it is local officials that distribute it to villagers. And it is at this local level that the rice goes missing. So where does it go to? Well, first, some of the rice is stolen by officials or their appointees. And estimates put the stolen rice at about 3 kilos. Also, note that the quality of the rice is often bad, as households can complain of dusty rice and that the rice bags contain rocks. And the suspicion is that officials swap out the good rice with rice of inferior quality. Now, besides the stolen rice, there is another 6.7 kilo of rice that is distributed to other households in the village. Now, this can be done both for good and bad reasons. And the good reason is that there might be poor households that were not included in the program, even though they should have been eligible. The bad reason is that local officials can give rice to their friends or political supporters who are not eligible. So what to do about the corruption? Well, we will cover 3 papers from Professor Banerjee that analyze possible strategies. And the first strategy was initiated in 2012. And the government decided to give targeted households more information about their rights. In this strategy, cards with information were sent to households. And these cards had information about how many rice bags they should receive and at what price. And the idea is that knowing more about your rights allows you to stand up for them. So what was the impact? Well, giving citizens information about what they should receive increased the rice received from 5.3 kilos to 6.6 kilos and reduced corruption from 3 kilos to 1.7 kilos. So this is quite an effective change to get more rice to the right people and reduce corruption. And the reason for this is that households were now empowered to stand up for their rights. For example, the authors noted anecdotal evidence that some of the households now refuse to get anything less than 15 kilos when dealing with the local official. So this change was a success, and this strategy was then rolled out for all participants in the program. But there was still work to be done. So let's move on to the second experiment. The second strategy happened in 2013 and was aimed at outsourcing the distribution of rice. The government forced local villages to implement a bidding procedure. And in this bidding procedure, anyone could bid to get the rights to distribute the rice. Surprisingly, the authors found that outsourcing did not have an impact on either the quantity or the quality of the rice. And the reason why they cannot draw any conclusion is because the data is messy. Now, the outsourcing did slightly reduce costs of the distribution, but only if enough bidders were present. So in my view, this treatment only had mediocre results. But that is the point of experimentation, to see what works and what does not. And that brings us to the third and most successful strategy. And this strategy was initiated in 2017, when the government decided to do a change in the program from the distribution of rice to a system of electronic debit cards. And the idea is to eliminate the possibility of distribution of rice by officials altogether. So how does it work? Well, electronic debit cards were now introduced, And these debit cards contained the money that could be used by the households to buy the rice directly from private vendors. So they no longer needed to get it from the local officials. And the results are quite amazing. Now, 92% of targeted households receive the full subsidy amount. The reason for the success is that while local officials are still involved in distributing the cards, they cannot divide the subsidy anymore. Because while rice bags can be split up, you cannot divide a debit card. So this was a great success. But what about the rice that goes to the other households? Well, the authors found that the increased amounts of rice mostly came from non-eligible households. In other words, rice mostly now went from middle income to low income households, which is what the policy was there for in the first place. So the change in program was very effective at ensuring that the subsidized rice now goes to the poorest for whom the program was intended. Now naturally, there are a lot more details and results for each of these strategies. So if you want to know more about one of them, I have a video on each of them, which you can find in the playlist on fighting corruption. You can also find links to the actual papers in the notes below. So thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed watching the video, please leave a like or comment below and let me know what you think.